Again, yeah. People need to stop over talking about obvious things. People need to stop over talking about obvious things. I see a lot of it. I'm gonna think of examples because my ancestors and relatives who passed away are telling me not to use the examples that are the foremost in my mind because they're telling me I should wait until I make people scream about those things. But I'm thinking, anyway, it's a lot of njoku Shmoge here. Thank you to my returning viewers. Thank you to those of you who were just with me a couple hours ago. Oh, stop over talking about obvious things. Just act. And sometimes just be quiet. Literally just be quiet. Just improve your behavior in the dark. Anyway. Amadio, he ha. Amadio, he ha. Amadio, he ha. Amadio, he ha. My ancestors won't release the voice for the number one thing I want to say. Think of my body like a world leader. In order for me to operate it without strain, every action must be authorized by my ancestors. And I don't like the strain. So, yeah. Anyway. You see, the world is full of criminals today. So how does that manifest on the granular level? It manifests with a lot of bold-faced lying. And the lying can take two forms. One, an affirmative lie. If someone gets up and says, Republicans like black people. Okay, I stand by that one. But let me use one that won't immediately trigger the Republicans, because I know some might be getting on you. I know I have a large audience. Even if I have problems with people, I don't want to always trigger them. It better. Let me think of another one. All right. Let me come up with two examples. These will be very theoretical. So you have two types of lies that are prevalent in society today because of all the criminals. The first one is a bold, and these are bold-faced lies now. The first one, and again, for new people, I'll give you two new things in addition to what I've already said. One, my government name is Chimoge Chijuke Ibe. This is just so you can look me up to know who I am. That last name is spelled IBE. And two, I was born in Washington, D.C. And that area is part of what my ancestors tell me should rightfully be called the shining sector of the extreme. Ron and Kaylee, yes. I had to rightfully name my birthplace by prayer because I'm not trying to glorify lines on the map. Anyway, so for the lying, you have two types of bold-faced lying. Affirmative bold-faced lying, where people will come up to you and say, if you stare at a white wall every day, you'll go to heaven. Actually, let me use Christianity. First kind of bold-faced lie. If you eat this wafer, you'll go to heaven. Okay. Um. All right. Let me try not to trigger the. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I have to be held back from triggering certain parts of my audience, but you have to admit that wafer doesn't even taste good. Okay. But let me use a really neutral one. First, kind of bold-faced lie. Someone might tell you that if you stare at a white wall every day, you'll grow 10 feet tall. Bold-faced lie. Right. This is just a theoretical example. That's the type of lie you get. Right. Again, maybe you haven't heard that exact one unless you're in church, but that's the form of it. That's an affirmative lie. Then you have what I will call a world building lie. Let me explain what I mean. It's not expressed in the same format as the first type of lie, but it's built on so much nonsense that you have to accept the lies, obvious lies, to understand it. Let me really think of an example for that. Okay, here's an example. And again, I'm workshopping here. I might come up with different example lies for the future. Um, Someone might tell you, um, you know what? Type Q maracas are hard to fly with. So they might tell you, hey, my Type Q maraca, I don't like it. I can't fly with it. Now, this is what is called a world building lie. First of all, they've told you there's such a thing as a Type Q maraca. And I'll leave it at that. They just talk nonsense. Sure, there might be different categories of maraca, but Type Q isn't really one. Then you have to accept the idea that you're meant to use this thing to fly. And I'll leave it at that. So, um, there's just a lot of lies now. And there's a lot of deviancy in the world as well, and they mix together. Just having some sparkling water. Yeah. Anyway. So yeah, that's really it. People just need to stop doing those types of things. Um, if you do that type of thing too much, it'll come back to you. But really, said more obviously, it's bad now. If something is bad, obviously it'll come back to you. Only Christians believe that you need to see the consequences of something's bad. And then, well, atheists, I don't know. I don't know what category of maraca this is in, but I don't think type Q is a real one. And I don't use it to fly. So, those of you who are complaining that you can't fly with this type of maraca because it's type Q and all these other things, just stop. Just be natural. Anyway, one day when I'm released, I'll let you know exactly what I'm talking about. Anyway, I think my family should know what I'm talking about. Or my AKG. Anyway. Abu Mamadiwa, Muangeta, Abu Mamadiwa, Abu Mamadiwa, Abu Mamadiwa, Abu Mamadiwa, Abu Mamadiwa. Anyway, let's take a seat here. Lying. Yep, people need to stop lying. Stop telling bold-faced lies. Both the affirmative ones that you just sit in front of people, and then what I'm calling world-building lies, where you construct a fantasy and then put out some Inshiyamala from that fantasy and have people deal with it. And then if people try and point out that you're making things up, you scream like an Njoku. Thank you, Gaming Yoyage Master. Peace be upon you. Thank you for that blessing. Thank you to all my viewers I've registered. Every view is a blessing. And once again, thank you for all the comments. Every comment is a blessing. I read comments at my discretion. Question from Gaming Yoyage Master. Are you believing Jesus is God or not? That's a complicated answer. Disclaimer, God and Jesus are both evil, but they're the same person and they exist. So I believe they exist. I believe Jesus is God, but they're both evil. Let me go into this. So let's start with the evidence we have from society. And of course, I'm just having fun here. Because I'll be honest, arguing about the existence of individual spirits is not really that important. Why do we do it? Because we have the cult of Christianity and its offshoots and or rivals. By the way, your rivals want you to exist, so it's not good that they're rivals. It's rivals, secularism, and atheism, and I'll throw agnosticism in there. But I have to work with that more because I think some people might call themselves agnostic and generally be like, I don't know what's going on over there. But there's many other people who use that term, and they're part of a cult. I'll deal with that one. Um, let's kind of look at that one. It's just like you're a halfway atheist. I don't know what to call it. It's a little odd. So anyway, let's look at the evidence from society. So many people worship Jesus and God, and they're no better than the people who don't, generally speaking. And then many of them commit acts of evil. And that's been true throughout history. So that's evidence that these entities are not good. Now, as for the existence of these entities, um, a reasonable person could be on either side because there are two options. Either these entities don't exist and they're conglomerations, they're ideas that are conglomerations of other things that exist, or they exist. And then there's some gap between those two, and I'll call that they exist but we don't really understand them. I'm really at they exist, but we don't really understand them. Why? My ancestors spoke to me. Part of the reason they spoke to me is because I don't care about this issue that much in and of itself. As in, I'm not the guy to sit up here and debate, does Jesus exist? All I know is that when I'm going about my day to day struggles, that spirit is not upon me, at least not in a positive way. And there's so many evil spirits out there. I just pray against them all. I just say, Ka, let's overcome. And then they'll go back from wherever whence they came. And the ones that aren't supposed to be evil spirits will reform. You see, I'm not really concerned with these things. And at the end of the day, if there are people on the street holding technology that can take out a semiconductor, um, I'm not as concerned with the spirit. Now, you must be concerned with the spirit because the spirit is animating that technology. Just let me move. Yeah, my ancestors. You see, we're having a board meeting now because my head is a boardroom. They're having a meeting. They're telling me to hold back. So what do I do when they tell me to hold back? Gaming Yoyage Master. Thank you for your earlier blessing. I just want to reiterate that. Yes. So anyway, so what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna direct that energy onto the fine tune point. Now, let's talk about Jesus and God, right? They're part of an entity that is known as the mirror of the savage. Agnele, Agnele, Enyo, mirror. Most people say it means eye. I say it means mirror. And Anya is power. Power goes through the mirror. That's how you see. These are my Enyo. My Anya comes through them. My power comes through them. That's how I see. And I'll leave it at that. Anyway, so this is the problem. Ile, the Watcher, nonsense. His the father of evil. His mirror, the things we call eyes, are also his power. That's not normal. That's generally not good. But that thing is itself an onyeka. It's an expansion person. It can be referred to as God or Jesus, among other things, like Satan and yes, the devil. So it has 5 rhythms. At the third rhythm, which is the one with the highest energies of percentage, that's where you get God. But you see, at this third rhythm, it's all one person, but it has people within people. Okay, Onyeka are complicated. So there are actually 4 people I want to draw your attention to here. God, Jesus, Christ. Yes, Christ is bad. And then Oparele, the first son of the savage. Okay. Now, when you look at this entity, these are all metaphors. And yes, they exist, but they're also a metaphor. Metaphors exist. They're metaphors for different types of people who've trespassed the laws of the land. Um, when it comes to these people and these rhythms, these are all metaphors for people who have they've committed some sort of act of war related to the family structure itself and or the youth. Let me move. So yes, these are all very bad entities. Um, and let me just get into it, and I'll just go. Jesus is all about acts of war within the family. Pardon. God, God is the tyrant. God does not like the youth, although he will spare the youth within his family. I'll leave it at that. And you can see this by many of the scandals in the church. They do not like the youth. And then look at Jesus, see how they can mix. Now, Christ is the most complicated one. Christ can do it all, but his mind is not together, at least even more so than the rest. Think of that technologist I described on the street. That's a form of Christ. Let me move. And also think of any other stereotypes of people who are not well put together and in their nzobu, they're all over the placeness, they hurt others. That's Christ, right? I'll leave it at that. Then you have Oparele. Basically, if you combine God and Jesus, you get Oparele. Why is he the first son of nonsense? Because that is the most nonsensical thing one can do before you get into, um, Efulefu and Beelzebub, the rest of the Anya. Those are the people who unjustly remove people from their station. Let me move. So yeah, anyway, that's an allegory for evil. Very unpleasant. Sounds on it, but anyway, what's my point of going into all this? Um, in terms of the existence of Jesus and God and them being the same, they are the same. They're subsets of the same person. This is really a person who has no respect for boundaries on a deep level, and therefore they have no self-respect and respect for the structural integrity of society. Now let's just look at the groups and people who worship God and Jesus. Yes, individuals can be good. Are these groups good all over? No. Overall, no. And then the more devoted a person is to these things, generally speaking, the less they respect others and the less they respect true structural integrity in society. And I'll leave it at that. And then let me focus on God, because that's the one who needs most attention. I've talked in the past about two things, and I'm going to keep going. One, the race to become God, as in the person who can do anything and everything without anyone's help. So many people want to do that. That's why people are isolating, but also losing things like manners and actually getting more aggressive. And two, what the idea of God does to our ideas of leadership. That a leader should have authorization to do anything and should be above criticism. That's not good. That's how we have things like the loneliness crisis in the world today, as well as various crises of leadership, and it leads to conflict. So this is very bad. So we really need to suppress that idea. Again, another word for God is tyrant. How are you not a tyrant if you do anything and everything by yourself and you submit to no one? And then, of course, how do you have proper relationships if every single person is your subordinate? Doesn't make any sense. Anyway, you can also refer to a part of Hilla as Eberi Hilla. Yes. Eberi means six. And then the Hilla is nonsense thing. So, Anyway. Anyway, I know that's unpleasant, but that's an answer. Anyway, thank you for your question, Gaming Yoyage Master. Hmm. All right, anyway, I think I've made my point. Thank you very much. Once again, Chimoge here. People need to stop telling bold faced lies. People need to stop telling bold faced lies. Thank you very much. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.